Hello, Internet. Hi, welcome to New York 360. I'm Jessie Hyatt.
And I'm Mike Varley, and today we're going around the Bushwick area looking at some of the graffiti that exists around here.
It's true, we are.
Yeah.
And right now we're sitting in front of some graffiti off to the side. We've been around the neighborhood and then we went down these abandoned train tracks so we could, relax for a minute and talk to you guys.
Yeah. We're kind of the halfway point of our journey. We're going to another section that has a lot of graffiti. So we're going to be doing what we've been doing previously, which is just talking over some of the footage of what we captured for the day. We watched a documentary last night called No Free Walls, and it's about a man named Joseph Ficalora and the Bushwick Collective, which is an organization that was founded by Joseph Ficalora back in 2011, I believe. It's either 2010,
I think it was
2011, or 2012. We'll also put the link down at the bottom to watch it. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's short. It's 30 minutes. It gives you a little information that's, totally based on what this guy Joseph feels and what his experience is, and then what this one other guy's experience is. So you see it from his perspective, and it's interesting.
Yeah, I think what it demonstrated to me is something that's a truism for all of New York, and I'm talking it out in real time, so Jessie will correct me as necessary.
Yeah.
But I think with a lot of things in New York, or particularly New York, a lot of things in life, but in New York in particular, there's always going to be haters and there's always going to be sharks. And this guy felt like a guy that was kind of in the middle. Somebody that from the neighborhood originally. His father died tragically back when the area was just crime-ridden. He was stabbed to death coming out of the train station a block away from his home. His mother was not capable of functioning at a full level from what was described. She didn't have the greatest command of English, and her husband was the provider of the family. And so I think it brought the family together a lot closer. And then his mom died of cancer, and that put him in a place of despair that ultimately led to a place where he was able to take that energy and pivot it into the community that he grew up in. And I would say that Bushwick still would have been what Bushwick was. Like, it was already becoming that.
What it was or what it is?
What it is, yeah. Bushwick would have become what it is. Relative to the timeline, he stepped in at a point where it was starting to go parabolic and really surge.
Yeah.
But after walking around today with the explicit, idea of capturing all this and looking at the graffiti, it really struck me how much it is just dominant in the area, and in a way that's really impressive and special. And I don't think it would have been like that without his efforts, from what I understand,
Yeah, totally. I also, the two of us have obviously spent a lot of time in this area independently and together before this. And I've always noticed the graffiti. I've always seen it, known it was here, but not really thought about how it really is just everywhere in this particular neighborhood, and not really like this. You enter the area where it's all graffiti and then you move on into another neighborhood and it's not there anymore. So it's not just a New York thing or a Brooklyn thing. It is clearly this specific part of Bushwick. And I would agree with you. I guess one of the big things that the reason that the name of the documentary is called No Free Walls is because they talk about how in other cities you can kind of go, there might be a number of different areas where it's dedicated art space, right? But New York doesn't have that. And so what Joseph did was and with the Bushwick Collective, he made this area a space where people can come. And I guess it was unclear to me, I guess he kind of partners with people that own the buildings. He definitely mentioned a number of times getting permission to use walls and linking artists with building owners, and that seems like a lot of work. So without that happening, I don't know how all the murals would have come up around here.
Yeah, there's the way that the documentary outlines it through his words is that all of the art is put up for free, just for the right to use the space. So it was a combination of noble and tragic. He was doing all this for free and just basically producing this movement. But at the same time, because he was doing it for free, he was doing it all out of his own pocket. That ended up having consequences further in the documentary. I'd recommend people watch it. But it was clear that there wasn't really a motive for him to make money off of this situation. Mm-hmm. And that's where one part of the equation comes in when I'm saying the sharks. You know, the idea that something you'll see in the video is that there is a lot of advertisement standing right alongside of this graffiti.
And sometimes even right over top.
Yeah, either right on top in the form of a billboard. There's also a lot of painted mural graffiti around.
And painted mural advertisements as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you can't tell even, like, is that art for art's sake or art for ad's sake?
Yeah, yeah. So, that's what happens when artists come into an area that ends up raising the profile and quality of the space. And then once young, single individuals move into the area, that is the prime demographic for spending money. And so you're going to start putting ads up there that attract their attention. And New York is a city that was built on commerce. It's not going to, in order for those things to not happen, the community needs to be especially strong, because the default in New York City is to make money out of a given situation.
Yeah. And I think this is sort of the dynamic when you talk about gentrification in general. And I think in my experience talking to people, at least, like, it comes up a lot where it's like, well, the neighborhood was trash, right? It was dangerous. It was like, you lived there, you felt proud that you lived there, but you knew it was dangerous. It wasn't like, you knew it wasn't like a nice place to live, and every time you leave your house that you could get mugged or stabbed or something could happen that wouldn't be good. So then the neighborhood starts to turn around, and everyone's obviously happy about that because they can leave their house and not feel like they're gonna get killed. But especially in New York, and recently, like, it happens so quickly, where then all of a sudden you're not scared of being killed anymore, but you're scared that maybe you can't afford to pay your bills, or you can't even live in this place where you put in the effort and you sweat through that time where it sucked, and now it's like really nice and people are coming in and like pushing you out. So I think there was an element of that he talked about in the documentary that we watched, and I don't know, it's just interesting. It's hard for me to wrap my head around it because my time in New York, I've seen that. That's all I've seen in New York. I know the pattern now. And I don't know when he started it, and I don't know if he knew the pattern yet.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure that the pattern in that time, it had been 20 plus years of people leaving the city.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if that pattern had been established. When you look at an area like Williamsburg and you look at how Bushwick has developed alongside of Williamsburg, I do think that people are learning, and I do think that the curve is improving.
Yeah.
You look at an area like Williamsburg and there are massive condominium complexes, 30, 40 stories into the air. That hasn't happened in Bushwick yet. I'm not sure if it's going to happen.
Well, I guess we're kind of giving away the documentary. I don't think we are. I still recommend that people watch it. But Antonio Reynoso was interviewed on it as well, and he's the representative of Bushwick. And he was talking about that particular thing. Like, that's a way to kind of keep it a community and keep it like from turning too far over into this place where it's unaffordable for people that have lived here for a long time. And he has a focus on trying to like bring all the communities that live here now together and keep it interesting and keep it diverse and dynamic.
Yeah. Something that I've been thinking about after watching the documentary is you can't expect an area not to change. And if you want an area not to change, paradoxically you have to work. And I'm not saying that wanting an area to remain similar to what you expect it to be is wrong, but it's just not something that is natural. Natural is to have things constantly in a state of entropy and changing.
Yeah.
So I think that there are, with respect to the graffiti and the art stuff coming in, I think it's really hard to argue on face value that it's a problem. I think it represents a change, and I think it represents a lot of positive change relative to there being a lot of crime in the area.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, the graffiti in particular represents an idea of reversing neglect. And, you know, a lot of reason that crime exists in areas is because areas are vacant or run down,
Yeah.
and they're neglected. There exists a perception in the environment that bad things can go down because nobody's paying attention. But once you create an environment where there's intention behind it, those sorts of things start to go away.
Yeah. Well, it also, like, when there's this, you know, when there's just like a boarded up building or something, it gives the appearance that nobody's been there for a long time or nobody's gonna be there. But then when there's this beautiful, fresh, bright mural on top of that boarded up building, then you think, oh, somebody was here. Maybe they were here yesterday. Maybe they were here an hour ago. Maybe they're coming back later to fix the mural. So whether you're like on the side of, hey, maybe I'm gonna like be the criminal here and do something bad, it'll dissuade you. Or if you're on the side of like, I just wanna walk around and feel safe, then it makes you feel like, okay, there's a community, there's other people around me, even if you don't actually see them in the moment.
Yeah. And then as far as, you know, saying like the hater aspect of things, I was reading some supplemental articles in addition to the documentary in preparing for this, and there are also street artists that predate the muralists, essentially, that feel that this is their turf, and that's a whole other culture that is being forced to live alongside what the Bushwick Collective does, which is invite people from outside of the city, outside of the state, outside of the country to come and create murals. And it's beautiful, but it's also antithetical to what tagging culture is in a lot of ways, you know, which is identifying what your neighborhood is and making sure that people know this is where you live.
Yeah, I'd like to see a documentary about that side of it too.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I feel like there's, I mean, a lot of it is just tied to ownership and like needing to feel a balance. I mean, just like this is like a general life thing too, like needing to feel a balance of community and ownership, and like you want to feel like you belong, you want to feel some kind of ownership over your neighborhood, you want to feel community, but like you can't control it all. No. Especially as like a big neighborhood like Bushwick, where I wish I knew exactly how many people lived here right now, but it's a lot. Like, it's a lot of people. You're never going to be able to control that or even know them all or feel community with them all. It's just a natural human reaction to feel frustrated that you can't control what the community's doing, especially if you feel like you put a lot of effort into making it a certain way and people are taking it in a different direction. Yeah, I get why all those different tiers of people, like the very first people that were coming in and tagging would obviously feel frustrated by the muralists coming in and getting all this credit, and they don't even live here, they don't even know the neighborhood. Like, I totally understand that. And then the muralists and Joseph, the Bushwick Collective, feeling frustrated that advertisement people are coming in and like taking advantage, like feeling taken advantage of, I'm sure, in every single step.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I feel in my heart that I have to respect somebody like a Joseph that took what he had, you know, which was his neighborhood and his ability to contact people and see if they will, you know, let him do something, and then turn his community into something that was completely different, and also something that creates a situation where things won't happen like what happened to his father. I mean, that's really, if there were more people that were doing things like that, the consequences of that, which is, you know, advertisers coming in, that types of stuff can be fought by the next tier of people that reap the benefits of what somebody like him did, you know?
Yeah. I'm thinking about communities that have had to fight violence and drugs and crime and whatever it was for so long, and then it's such a different fight, though, to fight like what ends up happening, like fighting big money corporations. Like the first one is just like on street level, it's like more dangerous to your short term, but at least you do have a little bit of control over it to some degree. Whereas then trying to fight, like once like big money comes in, that's a completely different fight. Yeah. And requires so much more ammunition, if you will.
I see it as similar in the respect that you're still dealing with government. You're dealing with the law force on one hand, where it's the police and trying to get them to be involved, and also trying to potentially get them to stop harassing you, depending on the situation. And then at this tier, you're working with the government to make sure there's zoning.
Yeah.
To, you know, both for housing, you know, to make sure there's affordable housing zone, or to make sure that there, you know, it's appropriate where advertising is put and not put, things like that. It requires a certain type of skill, I guess, or it requires a certain type of being brought up to trust the government.
And just like a shift in how you interact with it, probably too.
Yeah, and money. If you have money, you have influence in a lot of things, in how people perceive you.
Or even just having enough money to like take the time to make a phone call or something. You know, if you don't have money, you're working your ass off. But I agree with you. I definitely have respect for Joseph and the Bushwick Collective. As much as I know about it right now, I mean, I guess I shouldn't make that blanket statement because I don't know that much about him. But from just watching the documentary and that general thought of somebody trying to put community together in a creative way, I think it's pretty rad.
Yeah, I was a little skeptical at first, just doing some reading, but the documentary definitely, well, at least the documentary framed him in a light that was good.
Yeah. With
perhaps some things to think about further, but ultimately in a positive light.
But I recommend that everyone watching could watch that documentary if you want to learn a little more about the murals in this area.
Yeah. So that does it for this week. I hope you enjoyed the tour around the streets of Bushwick to check out some of the local art. We do this every Friday, walking around the city. So long as the quarantine's going, we're going to stick close to our neighborhoods. So I hope you enjoyed it. Come back on Fridays. Please subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you know when things are coming out. We also have Jesse's textile crafting that happens. On Mondays, we release a recorded video called Work Craft. And on Tuesdays, we have a live stream called Craft Work. So yeah, come check it out with us. Enjoy.
Thanks for watching.
Have a great one.